I am someone who has fallen largely out of love with the MCU, this franchise that I used to adore. I'm sure many of you saw my last video based on the insane numbers that it did, and you're probably laughing right now because of the drastic tune change it sounds like I'm making, but here's the thing.
No one can, but we can find a way. Together.
It kind of got good again? Now, I still firmly believe everything I said in my previous video. I think every point still stands. The MCU still has no coherent story, no character arcs that are as in-depth as the Infinity Saga. Okay, there are actually a couple exceptions to this one that I'll talk about, and it still should have ended after Endgame. I also don't believe in everything the MCU is doing right now. I didn't watch Ironheart. Do I plan to?
No.
But as we enter Phase 6 and near the end of the multiverse saga, I watch what the Russo brothers are rushing to set up and execute with these next two Avengers movies, and after the critical success of some of their recent projects, I can't help but feel a little hopeful that the MCU might be able to stick the landing on this very rough flight. Does this mean that I'll look back and regard the multiverse saga as a masterclass of storytelling? No, there's a lot of problems that I have and will continue to have regardless of whether or not I like Doomsday and Secret Wars. But damn, there was a lot to like this year. No, not you. We're not talking about you. I was super hyped for Daredevil Born Again, probably more than I should have been, because the original show is one of my favorite things on this planet. And I didn't love all of Born Again. Hell, I didn't even like a lot of Born Again. I thought a lot of the middle chunk was passable at best. But you know what I did love in Born Again?
It's not about him.
No.
Okay.
It's all about him.
Whatever you want to call yourself, whatever's behind the mask, behind your eyes. That's wrath, that's mercy, that's the dark and the light. He knew all of it. All of it. He knew you. I do too.
The post-overhaul stuff is shockingly good. Like on the level of the original series good. Here's how I break it down. Of the 3 overhaul episodes, those being episodes 1, 8, and 9, the first episode exists purely to bridge the two shows and explain why Born Again is going to feel different. It rushes through a lot of different characters and plot points because it has a lot to establish, but I think it's really well written and the characters are really compelling. Those same characters aren't compelling at all in episodes 2 through 7, but episode 8 is straight up at the quality of the original show. It is an utterly phenomenal episode. I find it hilarious that you can just tell that the new creative team didn't like the original version of Born Again based on the way they handle episode 8. They bring Bullseye back, Foggy's death is brought back into play, Fisk actually gets to act like Fisk, all the side characters get to step into their own and be actual characters, the show's visuals get better, everything about it is just better. It almost feels like a completely different show. And then episode 9 just feels like an hour-long apology for what we had to watch for most of the show. And it ends by playing Radiohead's Everything in Its Right Place. I see what you did there, Marvel. That was clever. And I always say that my favorite parts of the pre-overhaul episodes were the things that the overhaul team added. The Muse fight, for example. Damn, that was a good fight. I love that scene. My point is that after the strikes happened and Marvel locked in, the new creative team turned Born Again into something that made me happy to be a Daredevil fan. It started out feeling like a different show, and it ended by feeling like a proper follow-up made by people who liked the original. I look back at the show positively because you can feel the passion in what they turned it into, and it has me really excited for Season 2. I was initially going to talk about Season 2 later, but it just feels like it would fit better here. The creative team behind the good stuff in Born Again is heading up Season 2, and if they bring this level of sauce to that season, it will without a shadow of a doubt blow Season 1 out of the water and probably hit the levels of the original show. Now, I'm not asking for the quality of Season 3 because that is a ridiculously high bar, but I'll happily take the quality of Season 2, and I think they can achieve that pretty easily based on the work they did in Season 1. Dario Scartapane, Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead just get this character in this world, and they give a shit about it, and I see no reason why we can't trust them to deliver. And I do want to mention that Jon Bernthal is currently filming the Punisher special presentation that he also co-wrote. While I've never really been excited with the Disney Plus side of the MCU outside of Loki, which is just a phenomenal show, the fact that there's something I can look forward to in that realm makes me a lot more excited than I was several months ago.
This team can be the heroes on the Wheaties box with the little giddy toy.
I got a fair amount of comments saying I should talk about this movie because it was the opposite of everything I talked about in my previous video. And yeah, it's pretty good. I liked it a lot. Thunderbolts was a movie I wasn't really looking forward to because I didn't care that much about half of these guys, and it wasn't what I would want a Thunderbolts team to look like. It seemed like it was going to be a relic of Marvel's quantity over quality approach that would entertain me at most, but wouldn't excite me. But this movie kicked absolute ass. I like that the movie really felt like it wanted to do something different than we're used to with the MCU. Not just with the story of the movie itself, but the way it was made. This movie took a much more practical approach than most Marvel films. It has a unique look and feel to it. The cinematography in this movie is really dope. That shot of Sentry from behind looking at the soldiers, best shot in the movie. It's a really good creative team. Marvel put out that Absolute Cinema trailer that highlighted the talent they had working on this movie, which, by the way, I find it funny that they marketed this movie like it was a real movie and not just MCU Chapter 36. Really makes everything else feel like content in comparison. But I really like that they highlighted the writer, editor, composers, cinematographer, and just gave some credit to the massive talent they had working on this movie. Speaking of writers, Eric Pearson and Joanna Callow's script might just be Marvel's best. And I like that they found a common theme among all these characters and explored something Marvel hasn't explored before. This is a movie about depression, trauma, loneliness, and mental health as a whole. And I love that Marvel decided to take a break from the constant noise and let the creatives go wherever they wanted to go with this story. It's such a mature and compelling script, and it feels like Marvel finally realized their audience is just a bunch of depressed dudes. The characters are mostly solid. This is the exception to Marvel's lack of compelling character arc curse. This is such a well-done group of characters. I think Yelena is written far better than her sister ever was, and Bob/the Sentry/Void was my favorite aspect of the movie, and definitely one of my favorite villains the MCU has ever had. Also, quick note, by the end of the saga, Yelena will be the one with the most appearances. That's a crazy fact. And ultimately, my favorite thing about Thunderbolts is that it's allowed to be a movie. It has its own unique voice within it. Jake Schreier was allowed to direct the shit out of this. The writers were allowed to cook. Florence Pugh gave an Oscar-worthy performance. And most importantly, the movie got to have an emotional core and a powerful message that isn't completely destroyed by jokes. With the exception of a couple things, everything about this movie just works. It also finally had a post-credit scene that mattered. It wasn't setting up a movie that might not happen or won't happen for another 10 years. It set up something that was going to pay off a couple movies down the line. Maybe the Russos coming back was a good idea. They know how these things are supposed to go. Thunderbolts now holds the title of the second lowest grossing MCU film of all time. And I'm going to switch up my attitude for a minute because while I love this film and this video is approaching the MCU in a very positive light, Marvel made such an insane amount of mistakes from the beginning with this movie. I've heard so many excuses for why Thunderbolts failed, and I feel like people are missing the biggest reason why. Marvel made a movie with a name that has no recognition among casual audiences, that has no resemblance to its comic counterpart, contained exclusively side characters that no one besides the biggest nerds would know, all of which except for Bucky came from a Disney Plus show that most people didn't like, and a movie most people didn't like, played by actors who don't have enough star power yet to get people in seats, and then banked most of their marketing on speculating what the asterisk meant, just for them to reveal what it meant just 3 days after the film's release. Most of the conversation going into the movie also revolved around who would die, and Marvel answered that question a month and a half before the film came out when they did that cast reveal for Avengers Doomsday, crushing any and all speculation and stakes relating to the movie. That's why it made no money. I think that if Marvel just committed to the new Avengers name right out of the gate and didn't blow their load with the announcement, they would have made a lot more money than they did. But anyway, Thunderbolts instantly became a top 10 MCU film for me, and once I got out of the theater, I thought that if Marvel took all the right lessons from this movie, they would be able to continue making constant bangers. Two bangers in a row. Marvel, you shouldn't have. I don't know which movie I like more. I've seen both Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four a couple times now, and I really dig both movies. Fantastic Four First Steps has so much sauce. I have to talk about the visuals. This opinion might get me shot, but this is far and away the best looking MCU film. The cinematography here pops off at a level I did not know Marvel was capable of. And yeah, I know people have some complaints with the CGI because, to be honest, Franklin does look a bit wonky in a few shots, but usually he looks fine. Almost all of the movie looks fine. It definitely helps that so much of it was filmed practically, including Galactus. The cast has so much chemistry and they feel like a proper family. From that first dinner scene, like 5 minutes into the movie, you can tell that Sarah Hallie Finn once again earned her paycheck, and I fell in love with them immediately. My only major issue with the group is that Reed doesn't use his powers much. I know that his brain is his real superpower, and the movie focuses a lot on his intelligence, but I wanted to see him be badass, and he only gets to be at like one point in the film. I wish Ben did more, but it didn't really hurt the movie for me. Johnny and Sue were really the standouts of the team, but Silver Surfer kind of ended up stealing the show for me, and Galactus was just as frightening as I wanted him to be. Seeing this in IMAX was such a great experience, and it's all set to the backdrop of arguably Michael Giacchino's best work. Fantastic Four! biggest praise with this movie is that it is 100% in a separate universe. They make it clear that this is going to connect to Avengers, but for the first time since Phase 1, you don't need to do any homework or know anything in advance. I've been saying for a while that I think this saga would have been improved by multiple movies and shows taking place in separate universes, and this is proof why. The film's biggest strength is its standalone nature, and Matt Shakman was allowed to get so much more creative because of that. The look of this retro-futuristic world is gorgeous, and it would be a missed opportunity if the MCU didn't embrace this visual style going forward. But everything I praised Thunderbolts for doing, Fantastic Four also did. My wish was granted. Now, I don't want to prematurely say Marvel is back. So much disappointment people have from the MCU comes from the fact that at the slightest sign of something that is anything above bad, people say the MCU is back. I do think that if Spider-Man is good, we can say they're back. Then they will have done 3 banger movies in a row. By the way, we haven't had back-to-back good Marvel movies since 2018. That's a crazy thought. But they really need to knock the conclusion of this saga out of the park if they want people to believe in whatever they're doing in the future. But the fact that both Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four were solid movies gave me some hope. Because if Marvel takes the right lessons from these, we can be in for a solid road ahead. Marvel has a very interesting future, and I'm definitely looking forward to some of it. Eyes of Wakanda came out. That's cool. Maybe I'll watch it. It's only 4 episodes, but I forgot it exists. My bad. Apparently Marvel Zombies is coming out on October 3rd. I don't care about this one. Once upon a time, when this show was announced, I thought this was a great idea. But the more we learn about it, the less excited I get. This show also needed to come out around the same time as What If Season 1, since it's a spin-off. I don't like What If, so anything connected to What If, I'm not going to gravitate towards. Wonder Man? I don't know. I love Destin Daniel Cretton. I love Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I'm just wondering why Wonder Man is getting a series. And this was also in production back when Bob Chapek was in charge and pushed a quantity over quality approach. I don't know. I could see this one being good. And if this gets solid reviews, then this is one I will definitely binge after the fact. I don't want to say I don't want to watch this one. I'm just wondering why this is a thing. But in terms of shows I do know my feelings on, I cannot find a single cell in my body that cares about the Vision show. I feel like the better approach to this would have just been to get a second season of WandaVision that followed Wanda's slow transition into madness and showed Vision recovering who he is. I love Vision as a side character, but he's not nearly interesting enough to be a leading man. And I don't want to see Vision and Ultron walk around in their human forms because it saves money. I want to see Vision and Ultron. If this is received well, I'll binge it all like I'm planning on doing with Wonder Man, but I'm at least open to the idea of Wonder Man. I'm not interested in a Vision series at all, and I never have been. That just leaves Born Again, the Punisher special, Spider-Man, and the 2 Avengers films. I'm excited for Born Again and the Punisher, as I mentioned, but those are pretty separate. Long story short, it's the 3 movies. That's really all I care about. And thankfully, Kevin Feige has said going forward that they're going to try to keep the movies and the shows fairly separate. All within one world, but you don't have to constantly keep up with both to understand the others. The movies will do their thing, and then the shows will do their thing like it was before. This should have been the case from the beginning, but I'm glad that it's finally happening. To me, this is the single biggest hint that Marvel has a bright future ahead. Making a clear distinction between the movies and the shows will allow both divisions the proper time and ability they need to make the best thing imaginable without stepping on each other's toes. Born Again is the first attempt at this, and I think that taking the MCU connections out of that show for the most part made for a better series. I know people want everything to be connected, but eventually that'll stop working. By the end of the multiverse saga, there will be 40 movies, 28 shows, 6 one-shots, and 3 special presentations. You can't ask audiences to constantly keep up with that much stuff and then wonder why they complain about oversaturation. If Marvel can actually follow through on this, it'll make me and a lot of people automatically more invested in whatever the next saga is. But as for the rest of this saga, here's a quote from Kevin Feige in regards to Spider-Man 4. Him being by himself, dedicated to saving the city and dealing with, for lack of better terms, street-level crime as opposed to world-ending events. This one quote gets me so much more excited for the movie than anything else probably will. Here's the thing with the first Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy. Homecoming is really good. I love that movie. It's a great Spider-Man story with a great arc for Peter Parker and a great message, and I will not hear any arguments. The problems with MCU Peter start in Far From Home, my least favorite Spider-Man film of all time, and No Way Home is ultimately not that great of a movie, but it was a great theater experience. But it's a trilogy that got bigger and crazier with every installment, and outside of that first movie, it never really had the time to get down to earth with its lead. And Feige promises that this movie finally will. Now, I don't know how Punisher and Hulk will factor into the film, the latter of which actually worries me because everything about Hulk is the opposite of what Spider-Man is. But I'm just excited to see what a supposedly street-level MCU Spider-Man story can bring. Destin Daniel Cretton is a great filmmaker, and the action sequences in Shang-Chi are just a hint of what we can likely expect the action to be like in Brand New Day. Tom Holland has promised that they're going back to practical effects work, and at the time of recording this, Marvel and Sony have shut down 60 roads in Glasgow to film a huge action sequence. What I'm saying is that we have a Spider-Man movie coming up that I want to believe is going to feel like the ultimate Spider-Man flick. Homecoming is pretty close to what I want out of MCU Spider-Man, but that movie's just missing a level of creativity that I feel Destin Daniel Cretton is going to be able to bring to the table. Peter barely swings in those movies. He doesn't have a real one-on-one fight until the third movie, and Brand New Day could add that extra level I've been wanting since this character joined the MCU. But let's talk about the big boys.
There was an idea. Stark knows this. Called the Avengers Initiative.
I have said a lot of things both on and off camera about Doomsday and Secret Wars. I have a lot of thoughts about these upcoming Avengers movies. I have a lot of negative thoughts, especially about these two Avengers movies. Bringing the Russos to round out a saga they have had no creative say in until just now, casting RDJ as Doom, introducing Doom with no setup, and then going right into his biggest story, and bringing back the Fox X-Men seems to be the ultimate bit of fan service to round out a saga built on fan service. But I want to look at these Avengers films from a different angle, because now that we've seen the post-credit scenes for Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, and production on Doomsday is well underway, the kid in me has a growing interest in these movies. But to talk about Avengers, you have to talk about the Russo brothers. What a filmography. Their TV work has been pretty exceptional, but with their film work outside of Marvel, both before and after it, the Russo brothers have a pretty interesting track record. But for some reason with Marvel, they excel. The 4 films they have done thus far are some of my favorites, especially Civil War and Infinity War. Endgame is my least favorite of their 4 MCU films, but I still love that movie. It's worth noting that every time the Russos make a Marvel movie, they take a huge swing and do something the audience is not expecting. In Winter Soldier, it was the Hydra reveal. In Civil War, it was the entire third act. In Infinity War, it was most of the movie. And in Endgame, it was just ultimately the way they chose to end the story. Each of their films throws a huge twist into the MCU's narrative, and regardless of my problems with Doomsday and Secret Wars on a conceptual level, I think Marvel taking a huge swing is something the MCU could really use. But considering Marvel brought back RDJ and the Russo brothers, the safest options imaginable, are they willing to take a huge swing? I want to say no, but there's a giant part of me that thinks they will because I think they know they need it. If Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four have shown Marvel anything, it should be that audiences really want them to take risks and do something out of their comfort zone. Also, the X-Men were my boys when I was little, and I'm excited to see them back regardless of the quality of the movie. I want Magneto and Doctor Doom to have a 1v1 so bad. Ultimately, I think that somewhere within the absolute cameo fest that Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to be, is going to be something bold that the Russos want to do. It would be a brave ending to the saga, but I would rather Marvel do something different than do Infinity War and Endgame again. At least I hope that's the case. There's a huge part of me that's certain this is just going to be Infinity War and Endgame again, but I'm choosing to believe that Marvel will at least try to conclude the multiverse saga in a creative way. And speaking of being creative and doing something bold and unique, Kevin Feige's latest comments are kind of cryptic, but appear to confirm a theory that has been popular for some time now. We're utilizing that story, not just to round out the stories we've been telling post-Endgame, just as importantly, and you can look at the Secret Wars comics for where that takes you. It very, very much sets us up for the future. Endgame literally was about endings. Secret Wars is about beginnings. Reboot is a scary word. Reboot can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Reset singular timelines, we're thinking along those lines. X-Men is where that will happen next. Quite frankly, a reset and a soft reboot is something the MCU has needed for quite some time now, and I think it's the best avenue forward. Though I don't think Kevin Feige decided to do this until he saw Superman's success. Since Endgame, the MCU has not worked for a lot of people. Everyone has their own reasons and justifications as to why, but whichever way you spin it, this has just not been a well-received saga. And I think part of Marvel's struggle is that the MCU was built on B-list characters, and by the time Marvel got all their heavy hitters back, they had killed off Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, and had gotten rid of the Avengers. And now they want to build a universe consisting of every Marvel character, but they don't have all of their characters. If they do a soft reboot, they have the power to finally give us the proper version of the Marvel Universe on screen. One that has access to every character. Well, mostly every character from the start. one that can feel more like Ultimate Alliance, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, or hell, Lego Marvel. And a soft reboot doesn't mean redoing everything. It means redoing some things. They can keep things like Tom Holland as Spider-Man and the new Fantastic Four, but they can recast characters like Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and T'Challa and build out the Marvel Universe that everyone is dying to see. This is Marvel's best idea in years and instantly makes me so much more excited to see how Feige and the Russo brothers choose to end the multiverse saga. I just want Earth's Mightiest Heroes, man. Anyone who has watched that show will probably agree that it is the single best depiction of the Marvel Universe we have ever gotten. A universe that feels like comic books come to life, throwing everything it possibly can into one cohesive, full world and prioritizing deep characters, mature themes, and compelling stories. The first 6 episodes of the show introduce all the core Avengers, Hydra, Loki and Asgard, Kang the Conqueror, Ultron, S.H.I.E.L.D., the super prisons, assemble the Avengers, and show the inner turmoil that all these characters have in just a couple hours of television. The show didn't slow down to focus on origin stories and got straight to the point. Every villain was different, and if they didn't know what to do with one, they would toss them in prison, allowing them to use those characters again if they wanted to. It featured the best depictions of Hulk, Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, T'Challa, Hawkeye, and Thor we have ever gotten. Iron Man and Captain America are great too, but I guess I just have an MCU bias for those two. The Fantastic Four, the Heroes for Hire, Spider-Man, a version of Captain Marvel that was unbelievably well written, it was all there. It was a super rich superhero world that gave us everything we ever wanted, and it was canceled. Not because it was bad, not because it didn't have high viewership, but because it wasn't a show that fit the mold of the MCU. Because it was something that dared to be different and unique. There is no reason we can't get this in a rebooted Marvel universe. There's no reason we can't do that. James Gunn has already proved with just one movie that this is possible, and Marvel needs to do it. But in conclusion, for as messy as the multiverse saga has been, and as disappointing as the MCU as a whole has been since Endgame, Marvel is teeing themselves up for a great opportunity. One that I can't help but look forward to. I just hope that they manage to stick to the landing, because I can confidently say that for the first time in a few years, I have genuine hope for what the MCU is. And what it aims to be.